All right, this is Flash coming at you with my first Yahoo Fantasy Basketball Pro League draft. Actually, this is the fourth I've done, the second I've recorded, but the first that I can actually post. So, if that makes sense. Anywho, I'm going to show you all how to win with the second to last pick in a snake draft format. Arguably the most awkward pick. For me, I'd rather have the last pick so I could have the turn. And in a 12-team, I think 10th and 11th are the hardest positions to draft from, and in a 10-team league, 8 and 9. So all is not lost, though. You could still make savvy picks. In my case, I went with Kawhi Leonard, MVP of the second half of last year, especially in the playoffs. Of course, he led the Raptors to their first championship, and he's a great value pick outside the first 10 picks. I went with Gobert as number 2, just so I could have guard, forward, and center positions reflected in my first 2 positions. And I think even though you got Zion, you got Capella, you got a lot of quality big men in the middle part of drafts that you could target, it's not a bad thing to secure your blocks early on, and especially if you get the combination of high blocks and low turnover rate that Gobert provides. And he's a board machine, so now Gobert's not going to get you 3, so you really have to make sure your third and fourth guys can shoot it. In my case, as you'll see, I was really hoping to get Hild, but he would go ahead, so I went ahead and targeted Russell. And I think Russell, despite the Hild was not picked up. I went ahead and just got Russell because I think he's worth the pick in the top 35. I think if you get him, you get a discount on him. The toughest decision I had to make early on was to go Markkanen or Tatum. I went Tatum, and I didn't think Markkanen would fall, as you will see in a second here. Sorry, Mitchell Robinson was the other block guy I was thinking of earlier. Mitchell's arrival last year kind of ensured that it's not as hard to get blocks. Blocks in the NBA are not like the steals of baseball, if that makes sense. So I wasn't thinking at all that my guy Markkanen, he was one of my favorite players last year. I think he was in the top 25 or something, or top 30 most of the year. And I'm just thinking standard cat leagues. I'm not a rotisserie player. I'm all about head-to-head, so that's just how I roll. I was distracted, by the way, as you could tell. This was a draft I scheduled a week ago, but my wife went into labor on Friday morning at 3:30. Her water broke. So I'm in the hospital during all this, and I'm trying to stay true. She would actually, she was stalled out at this point, so she knew I was drafting. But a couple hours after this is when things really started to increase on the delivery front, when labor really started to get going for us. So we have a son now. At this point, son was still internal. You'd be external a few hours after this draft. So fun little side fact. So I got Markkanen, and that was a shock. I couldn't believe he fell to almost the 60th pick. Then I got Isaac, the next pick after, and I was really on board with that because I feel like Isaac is so versatile. If he can increase his scoring output somehow, some way, he could, he has top 50 upside easy. To get Markkanen with top 20-25 upside at pick 59 was unbelievable. So I really felt like getting Markkanen as low as I did, or rather as high as I did, it depends on your view, really secured or really increased the odds of this roster being a playoff team. Now I know that, and I apologize, I got distracted in between picks. Sometimes, when I draft, I don't like watching what other people are doing because I feel like that somehow triggers Murphy's Law, and I'm going to miss out on the guy I'm looking at, especially like the very last pick. So, anywho, I went Oladipo here at pick 83. I think if you're in competitive leagues, you got to target him closer to the 75th pick, I should say. You could go between 75 and 125, but I think you go, he's making progress. He's ahead of schedule in his injury recovery. You got to go lower with him and just put him in your IL slot. You get 2 IL slots in Yahoo, and you can just try and fill in as best you can. And kind of, the first 2 weeks of the season are the least significant of any part. You want to get off to a hot start, but if you could just hold serve with injuries on the front end, like target guys who have immense upside. I mean, that's you're not at this stage of the draft, you're not going best case available. You're going, who's going to be potentially a savior for my lineup towards, in crunch time situations, the last 2 to 4 weeks of the season, and Oladipo, if he returns to 17-18 form, he was amazing that year, and he just got hurt, like many players. But, you got to pay attention to injury news and go with it. So to get Oladipo, I thought was a sneaky way to diversify my roster. Most people kind of scared to target injury risk, at any point, but I think once you get to like pick 7, 8, it's okay to go that way. So I got Allen just because I need another center. I got Wright because I still believe, despite his poor preseason, he has the makings of a breakout, and he played for the Grizzlies. I'm a Tennessee boy, live in Nashville. I follow the Grizzlies. They're my team, so Wright was great in limited time last year. And then just went after Beverly. I kind of ran out of time. I couldn't make up my mind who I wanted to, but it's fine because that ensured me that was going to be my last point guard pick, and he's great defensively. I think defensive stats are underrated, and percentages might be a little overrated, personally. I think percentages you could punt, but defensive stats, it's harder to make up in the later rounds. So you could see my queue was going after wings at this point. Really like those guys who I have in my queue, Grant, Prince, Culver. I'm trying to think. There was someone else I would add to my queue later on who I really like to target. I'm trying to remember his name. He plays for the Hawks. He'll probably come into view in just a little bit here. But overall, I really like my team. Russell Leonard, Oladipo, Tatum, Markkanen, Isaac Gobert. This was like one of my dream, I don't want to say a dream draft, but a lot of the players that I'm really high on, I was able to get and lock into place. So I know Allen, there's some concern with Jordan there, and I think a lot of people want to go Jordan, but I think Allen could still finish with a top 75 finish overall. You think he's going to be 1A to Jordan's 1B. DeAndre Hunter, there he is. That's the other guy I'm really big on this year, DeAndre Hunter. Olynyk, not sexy, but I think he could do well with the Heat this year based on their roster construction. So I got Ross at a discount. He went like 25, 30 picks later than he normally does. He's a 3-point specialist, but ensured a premium cat there with that pick. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this vid. Sorry, I was distracted with weather. I'm a weather freak. It's my favorite hobby outside of fantasy sports, and so I try to keep my flash weather page going. So that's kind of all the fun extra stuff you're seeing here. But hope you learn a little bit just watching my draft recaps, and you can get a little bit behind the scenes, behind the curtain look at not only guys I'm targeting, but guys I consider to have considerable upside, because it's not going after best case. Sometimes it's like trying to find those players that have the greatest differential between their ceiling and their floors. Do they have a safe floor and a high ceiling? Do they have a decent floor at least? And compared to their ADP, you have to take the ADP ceiling / or their ceiling / upside difference, if that makes sense. So, all right, guys, I'll catch you on the fry. Hope you enjoyed this. Peace.